to this next tutorial on our introductory course on Unity. The last video, what we did was we walked around Unity just trying to get comfortable with uh, building out a simple Hello World project, getting our Unity hub set up, and then getting our Unity install set up, looking at some of the different windows that are available at your disposal. Now we're actually going to build something out, have a little experimental game and very simple game. Uh, and but focus more on cameras, lighting, and skyboxes for today. And we'll do a little bit of scripting. So that's our goal for today. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a fresh new project. So we're gonna say new. We're gonna choose 2020.1.17, and it'll be a 3D project. I'm gonna call it module 2, or it's called M2. For module 2, we'll say 3D world 1 and give it a home. All right, so now that our Unity environment is all set up, we'll just use the sample scene for today. For today's exercise, what we're gonna need actually two assets from the Unity Asset Store. So in case you're not familiar, the Unity Asset Store is something that I believe it puts Unity above any platform out there, because having a whole world of assets you can download and / purchase at your disposal really makes it easy for game developers to go out and build something. So what you can do is you can go to assetstore.unity.com. I'm just going to pull over the website here right now, and we're actually going to bring in two assets today. The first asset we'll bring in right now is called Unity Chan. Okay, it's from Unity. It's meant to be a way to help users to be able to build out games with ease, or at least get their prototyping up and running until they can get their own characters in there. So all you have to do is once you're in here, assuming if you don't have an account, what you want to do is you want to create an account and log in to this Assets Store website. I already have one. Once you're in, you just click on Add to My Assets. So you can add it to your assets. Essentially, from there you would also click Open in Unity, and then you would switch over to Unity, which I'm going to do right now, and go inside Package Manager, which I have open here. You can always go to Window and Package Manager and bring that in, but I already have it open and set up. And what you're going to do is you're going to search for Unity Chan. Now, if you're having trouble finding it, you'll probably have to go back to the website, the Unity website, and for some reason it doesn't have me logged in, so we'll just sign in. All right, I'll bring it back in a sec. All right, so for me, it already knows that I already purchased, quote unquote, purchased the asset. So even though it was free, so what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna click on Open Unity. It'll say, do you want to allow it to open? Yeah, let's hit OK, open a new Unity editor. And now it's gonna actually load here. All right, so what you do is you may have to hit download first. I believe it's already cached onto my hard drive, so that's why probably the download button is not enabled here. Just hit import. And let it do its thing. All right, and when you hit import, you should see a window like this. This eventually pop up. Just hit import. Let it continue to do its thing. All right, and so it looks like it finally has downloaded. Now it probably will take a lot longer than what you're seeing here on the screen because I just kept hitting pause on the recording and just let it sort of fast forward on its own. But just looking in the project window I have here, I have a folder called Unity Chan. Within Unity Chan, I have another folder called Unity Chan and Prefabs. We haven't talked about prefabs yet, but prefabs like prefabricated assets. You can create your own prefab. I'll briefly show you later on in this video today. But what we can do is you can take that prefab and just drag it into the scene. It looks like there's a little bit of a bug in this version of Unity that I'm using because you can see that Unity Chan is all pink, and that shouldn't be the case. It should be a much more detailed color. Even this is very odd. This little color here with box Unity, this file here. So I think there's probably a little oddity or a little bug here, but it actually works. It won't be an issue. So now that we have Unity Chan, we'll grab the other asset later on in the video because when we get to Skyboxes, I'm going to have you guys download some Skyboxes later on. It's already free on the store, so we'll just grab those later. But for now, let's start by creating our scene. So going into our scene, I'm going to start by creating a floor. So go to Game Object, 3D Object, Plane, and it'll add a little floor there. I'm going to resize it to be 100 by 100. All right, just so it looks a lot larger. I think the color, if I look at the game tab, color looks sufficient. I'll leave it as its default color. You could always change it to something else. We learned about materials last class anyway, that you could. So now that we have this, let's drag Unity Chan onto our scene. So what we do is you go to project. We already have prefabs open. There's two Unity Chan ones. They're both, if I look at the file name, Unity Chan Dynamic and just Unity Chan on its own. Let's grab Unity Chan Dynamic, just throw it on the scene there. I'm actually going to set the X and Y. So it'll be 0, 0, 0. So it's dead center. If I look at the game. Now if you look at the game here, the game view, with main camera, we'll talk about cameras soon. You'll see that it still looks far away. Now I could move the camera to be closer, but I think what I'll do instead is move Unity Chan closer. And also it's not facing us, and I want to change that. So what I'll do is I'm going to rotate Unity Chan 180, so 180 degrees. So now Unity Chan is facing us. And I'm going to take that blue arrow and just drag it. It's going the wrong way. It's going to drag it closer, closer. I think that's sufficient. All right. Now, what I want to do is, for this first part of the lesson, I want to now focus on lighting. But I want to encapsulate Unity Chan inside a set of walls, like a miniature room. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start adding some cubes and resizing them. So I'm going to actually bring it in closer. So let's just move my view there in the scene. So now what we'll do is we'll start by adding in some walls. We'll say cube. So 3D object cube. Just gonna, now it's kind of almost about to overrun Unity Chan there. So let's see, just gonna drag it back there a bit. Right, so we'll pull it back a bit. And let's play with the scaling here. So I'm just gonna hit the scale tool and just gonna make it thinner and stretch it and make it bigger. And now pull it up. It might go a bit bigger. Yeah, that's good. And height-wise, I think we can a wee bit more. There. All right. So that's our back wall. Now, what I want to do is I want to duplicate it. So when you have an asset, what you can do is you can duplicate it. Now, first off, let's organize. We have a bunch of these walls here. So what we're going to do is create an empty game object. This is good for organizing your objects in your hierarchy. So hit create empty. I'm going to call this walls. And then what we'll do is we'll drag this cube we just added inside walls and rename cube to be back wall. Now I have this back wall, as you can see. I want to duplicate it. I don't want to just drag another cube and resize it and hope for the best. So in the hierarchy, if you make sure that the item is highlighted, so now I have it highlighted, it's blue, I do a Control D, or probably a Command D on the keyboard for you Mac users, that will duplicate whatever is there. Now I'm going to rename this to be left wall. And I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. All right. And I'm just going to drag it over to the side. I'm just guessing where it is, but we'll get a higher view. Pull it up a bit. Now it's kind of big. Let's shorten the length a bit. There we go. See where we're at. Yeah, that looks good. Now, so we have our left wall there. What we'll do is we'll do a Control D to duplicate and drag it to the other side. And I call this right wall. All right. Now let's put a ceiling above. In fact, actually, before we do, looking at this, I want to bring Unichan further a bit. There we go. And maybe I'll move the walls back. So if I highlight the back wall, hit Control key on the keyboard to highlight left wall, and hold down Control, hit the left wall, you see they're all joined together. So I can actually just drag them all back at once. There we go. Maybe I'll go a little bit further back and just pull Unichan back to where she was before. About there is good. Let's put a ceiling up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this back wall, do a Control D to duplicate it, and just raise it in the air and rotate it by X. Let's see if that's the right one. Yep. So now it's rotated 90 degrees. See where we're at. It's a little bit higher. I think that's good. And let's scale it. So I want the green. Because what I want to do is I want to illustrate lighting. So I'm going to take away all the light. Oops, not that one. It's that one. So you notice the lights are gone. All right. Now if we pull away, we have this inside a structure. In fact, maybe let's give it some light because it looks like it's complete darkness now. So I'm just gonna reduce it a bit. Yeah, make it like a half structure, half enclosure, I guess. Pull it back. Now I want Unichan underneath, so I'm gonna move Unichan a bit back. Oops, not that one. There. All right. So now we have Unichan inside. Or actually better yet, let's pull the entire enclosure. Unichan a little bit closer. Pull the entire enclosure forward. There. All right. Oh, let's rename the second back wall as ceiling. Now let's just do Control S to save what we got. You know what, I'll take a little moment and let's look at the left and right wall and just adjust them as well. I'm just being very picky here, so I'm just going to hide the ceiling for a bit. Just going to uncheck that. So if you ever want to hide something, the checkbox here. And you'll notice that ceiling is grayed out. It's still there, it's just hidden. Or it's disabled, essentially. really convenient for when you want to get a better look at certain things, or you just want to have things only appear when you enable them, and we can use code to enable and disable them as well. So just gonna keep it unchecked. Let's see if I can actually do both at the same time. I don't know if I can give it a shot. Actually, yeah, I should be able to. Yeah, just wanted shorter length walls. There, and we'll put the ceiling back on. Much better, much better. Okay, now I have exactly what I want. Okay, and if I just bring this up a wee bit. There. Okay, so now we have our walls in place. Now, we created this little structure here, this little miniature room, and its purpose is to illustrate lighting in a moment. But since I'm here, let's talk about prefabs a little more. So you have this little structure here. You want to save it and use it later. Well, you can create a prefab about it. You can create a prefab of it. So what we're going to do is it's recommended you put your prefabs in a separate folder called prefabs, just so you have things organized. Just hit the plus sign, or you can actually right click here and go create folder. I'm going to call it prefabs. Double click on prefabs, go inside it, and all you have to do is just drag walls here. And you'll notice that there's a little icon here of walls. You can actually edit your prefab now, so you can actually make changes to the prefab itself. And then when you're ready to actually add this prefab to the game scene, let's say I want to add a second structure, I'll just take it. You can see it's added to the game, and that's all. I got a bunch of these. Right? So I just hit Control Z to remove them, but now you have these pre-existing, pre-built structures that you can go ahead and reuse and add as you see fit. So now that we have the walls here, let's look at lighting. So now what we'll do is we'll start by looking at the different lights that we have at our disposal. So if I actually go to Game Object and I go to Light, you can see the different lights we have at our disposal. All right, directional light, point light, spotlight, area light. And by default, when you created the scene and created the project, directional light was added here. And if I was to disable, well, I've got, you know what, let me just hide the walls for a sec. There we go. Now, if I was to highlight directional light and uncheck the checkbox to hide it, you can see the darkness has befallen the entire world. Whoa. So you can see the role that directional light plays, and it's a pretty dominant role as it just adds light to the entire world for you. So put it back in, so we have our light there. I'll just uncheck my walls, make sure I have access to it. So now it looks dark. So now what I want to do is I want to start with a point light. So I'm going to go to Game Object, Light, Point Light. And if we look inside the scene here, it is just above. So you can see that here's the point light, and it's slightly just above the top, the ceiling. If I actually bring it down, you can see that it's added a little bit of light. So lighting can go a long way in adding some flair. There we go. Now Unity Chan looks like an angel because there's a little effect of a point light just protruding from behind her, right? And shadows and everything is always preserved. Now we can always move it around and see. Now if I take it away, it's too far away. Bring it back. We got this little point light, and the point light doesn't have to be white in color. I can actually change the color to be, well, let's make it aqua. So now the room looks a little aqua-like. So now you have a little color effect going on inside of here. All right. You're not going to add these lights, but let's put this under its own empty game object. So I'm going to say empty. I'm going to call this lights. And just drag point light under lights. There. So at least we have things organized. All right. So the next thing I want to do is add another light. Let's add a spotlight. All right. Now I'm gonna drag spotlight into the lights category. I'm gonna hide the point light because I want to show you the effect of the spotlight. Now the spotlight is here, nowhere near Unity Chan. Let's bring it closer. I'm gonna put it right above Unity Chan. There, you can kind of see down here the light there. So you can see like it's more like a ta-da. We got a spotlight here. If I raise it, all right. You know what? Let's move Unity Chan a bit back. Oh no, actually better yet. There's my full scale. That's better. So now we have the spotlight there. It doesn't have to be white again, like I said. Let's make it purple. Or I guess some would argue it's fuchsia. But there we go. You can change the intensity, you can change the range. You can see the intensity, how big it can get. Like really intense and cover the entire room, or have it just be an exclusive spotlight. Range, you can even change that to be 20. Maybe let's see what 50 looks like. So you can see that the light gets stronger and stronger and stronger. If I bring it down a bit more, there you go. You can have a spotlight hovering above Unity Chan. All right, so that's spotlight. Now let's look at area light. In fact, before we add the area light, let's add the point light back in and see how both lights work together. And you can see that even though the entire room is illuminated aqua, the spotlight still prevails underneath Unity Chan. Now, one thing I want to do with these walls is to change the color of the walls from its basic look and feel, its basic color, to be something different. So to do that, I need to actually add a material to this. And in fact, if I want to edit the prefab, I actually can go inside the prefab and I can edit the prefab directly by clicking that arrow. And when I'm done with the arrow, I hit the arrow back here, I come out. So I can either edit this copy directly and change the colors of the walls, or I can edit the prefab by clicking on the arrow to go directly in. So what I want to do is I want to change the color. So if I click on back wall, for example, I need to change the color for this. In order to change the color for this, I need to create a material. Okay, and so to do that, I'm going to stay inside prefabs and add and create a material. This material, we'll call it wall material. And I'm going to change the color to be like a brownish. Like a rouge maybe. Okay. And now let's apply this to the back wall. By actually dragging it, oops, don't want to lose that, by dragging it to element 0. You probably don't see, there was a slight color change there. Let's apply it to, maybe I can do it to all at the same time, left, right, and ceiling, and just drag it and replace, there we go. Now we have here a different color for our wall. Now that I'm done with it, I just hit Control S to save the prefab. I'll hit back, and it's still applied. And if you want to verify that it actually was applied to the prefab itself, just drag, and you can actually see here the color has changed. But you can throw in another prefab there, and yep, you've got another wall with the new color. All right, let's get rid of that. We'll zoom back in, go back to our game. It didn't really have an effect Maybe if I lower the intensity, it'll probably have more of an effect, and you can see the rougeness of the walls. But it's suffice to say, it's actually easier for us to see what's going on here. So, like I was saying, we did the point light, we did the spotlight. Let's do an area light. So I'm going to drag an area light. Let's create, under game object, light, area light. Now area lights are a little odd, a little tricky to work with here. Some versions of Unity have a bug with area light, which doesn't really work very well. So you have to sort of finicky with it. But we'll see what happens right now when we make the adjustments here. So I have area light. So first off, let's disable the point light and the spotlight so we can get more of a understanding what's going on here. And we have our area light. It's not really very visible. Let's actually change the colors, bring it closer to Unity Chan. So we'll look at Unity Chan, we'll line it up with Unity Chan at negative 7.45. We'll do the same here, negative 7.45 as well. Let's change the color, something more like a red. All right, X, we'll bring it to 0. So 0, 0, negative 7.45. And you can always try playing with the range and width and height. Now it's a 1 by 1. Let's switch it to be like 2 by 2. And switch the range to be 50 to give it a large range. And let's try and locate our area light there. Now it's actually out here, way out here for some odd reason. I was hoping it could line it up with Unity Chan's location, but it doesn't look like it's lining up perfectly, so I'll have to actually drag it myself. If you double click on the object, it'll actually bring you in closer. And oh, right, of course. So notice that the rectangle is actually above, but I want to have it come from the side. So let's actually play with the rotation of this area light. There we go. And so now the area light is one-sided, so you gotta be very careful of that. And this is where the issues arise, because you might add an area light. An area light, in my opinion, is like one of the most frustrating experiences of my life because it doesn't work right out of the box. Maybe it's just this version of Unity that causes that is causing problems. But suffice to say, this is it takes a bit of massaging to get it going. We'll try to play with the intensity here. And we'll cast shadows. Let's draw a halo. See if, there we go. Now we got something going here. So now you can see, not perfectly what I was looking for, but now it looks more like a halo. Now you can actually play with the settings. Let's say the range back to like 2. Didn't make a difference there. I think because the intensity is really mustering it. Let's try intensity of 1. Maybe bring it down to 0.5. You can see how much of a faded. So now it looks more like a halo. I'm going to put it right to the side there. There we go. All right. Let's actually put another, let's Control D this and move it to the other side and change color. Go with an orange. No, yeah, we don't want to promote any. That looks like a symbol of a company there, so we'll go on to, let's go on to something different, like green. Yeah, yellow, red and green. So there we go. So now it has more of a halo effect going on. We have like 2 area lights going on here, so now it looks more like a halo effect. If you actually run this, okay, so you can see Unity Chan in effect there. Let's enable some of the other lights here. So point light. So now the entire room is illuminated. Spotlight. Now Unity Chan has little spotlights. Now you have 3 different types of lights illuminated over Unity Chan and giving her like a spotlight, sort of a discotheque type feel to her. So yeah, so that in a nutshell is lighting. Okay, so now let's switch gears and look at cameras. Now what you're seeing right now is the view from the main camera right up here. And whenever you highlight a camera, you'll see that in the scene view, you can actually have a sub window of what that camera is looking at that moment. So cameras are our eyes into the game world. And you can have more than one camera. And what we're going to do today is we're going to add a few cameras to our game here. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an empty game object called other cameras. So I'm going to hit game object, create empty other cameras. Okay. Now let's add a new camera. So we go to game object, camera, and we'll drag this camera. Now you notice that everything went blank because all of a sudden control gets moved to this new camera that you added on. Now let's see where it is located. If I double click, actually let's give it a name. I'm going to call this rear view camera. Okay, because I'm actually going to position it behind Unity Chan. So if I double click on it, it's actually like right there. Now what we need to do for the rear view camera is make some adjustments to it. Now I'm going to reduce the field of view down to like 20, yeah, about that much, 26. And we're going to position this camera. So you notice that it's actually, I think, pointed dead at, yeah, that's exactly it. And it was pointed like right at the wall. And let's get right in there. I'm gonna actually first let's move it to the corner. There we go. I'll put it right in the corner. And I want to rotate this thing to face the other way. There. Now we're getting somewhere. And point up a bit. Let's move it over. A little bit of adjustments to go. There, that's what I want. I want to have like both walls there. With Unity Chan off to the side. Looks kind of like an epic picture there. But yes, that's the idea. And I want to have it facing the outside world from Unity Chan's perspective. So this is our rear view camera. Let's add another camera. And I'm going to call this world camera. Now you can see it's still a black screen. It's actually in focus as well, as it's overriding. What we're going to do with the world camera is have it zoom out from the structure. Rotate it a bit downward. There. So we'll have more of a world view. All right. And let's add one final camera. I'm going to call this camera World Camera 2. It's going to be another world view, but from a different angle. Okay, let's bring it out as well. There, like the side view. Yeah, so that's World Camera 2. All right, now you can see that we have these different views. We just have to disable the cameras so we can get the previous view up and running. So we can disable them. Right, and I have the rear view in focus. And if I disable that, then I'm back to main camera. All right, and if I disable main camera, then, well, I'm basically blind. So now let's look at configuring this camera even further. So you notice that we have this horizon, this blue horizon. That kind of looks like the sun is just starting to come up, and that's standard for all Unity scene views that you create. Then it's up to you to configure the sky. And this leads us into this concept called the Skybox. In fact, you'll notice that all the cameras I have highlighted, clear flags is set to Skybox. What's a Skybox? A Skybox is essentially a representation of your horizon. So a sky essentially, and it's designed as a box. So it's like a six-sided image that Unity renders and makes it to look uniform based on like 6 images that you can provide or download that are pictures of skies, and they should be uniform. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to download some free Skyboxes from the asset store. There's a ton out there just to play with. What you're going to do is if you search for Skybox, I'll bring up the asset store right now. All right, so there's Unity Chan. If I search for Skybox, you'll see that it's kind of grayed out because I already clicked on it in the past. But this developer, RPG Whitelock, very good Skyboxes, has a free version, so perfect for us to learn. All right, so let's click on the All Sky Free here, and just grab it. I already have it, so you'll have to click download. So in my case, I'm going to say open in Unity. So go ahead and download it, add it to your assets, download it. I'll hit open in Unity Editor. Now it opens up my package manager. It's already been downloaded to my computer, so it's already cached on my computer, but you may have to hit downloads. Go ahead and hit download. I'm going to hit import and just let it do its thing. I'll be pausing recording to speed this up for you. So just hit import when all the files show up and let it do its thing. All right, so now that it's done adding the Skyboxes to the project, if I go to project for a sec, a new folder called All Sky Free, in this case, the name of the author, has been created, and they have all kinds of these pre-built Skyboxes, and you can see the different kinds of Skyboxes available at your disposal. We're going to add one Skybox to each camera. So the way you add a Skybox, first I'm going to do a Control S to save my scene so far. Go back to scene there. I'll leave the project view open, but going to the scene there, we have main camera highlighted. So if you want to add a Skybox to a camera, you have to add a component. There's 2 ways to add a component. You can go to the drop-down menu for component, go to rendering, and Skybox is right there. So you click on Skybox. So component, rendering, Skybox. All right, so it adds a new Skybox component to the main camera. And again, remember, you have to have the camera highlighted and in focus so it adds it to the right place. Let's start with Epic Blue Sunset. Now there's a bunch of files here. So some of these, like we click on them, they're actually like PNGs. All right. What you need are one of these. They're mat files. So this is a .mat. This is also a .mat. This also has all of those 6 images there as a 6-sided cube, and that's why it's called a skybox here. So first thing I'll do is I'm actually going to drag the mat, this one actually in particular. So I got to highlight main camera again, scroll down, there's Skybox. I'm just going to drag this to custom Skybox, and there. Now, looking at the main camera, so look at the main camera, you can't really tell. If I go back to game view, you can't really, because our main camera is zoomed right inside the structure. I could take a quick peek by just changing the field of view to zoom out just a little bit. It looks not the greatest because of the floor kind of ends here, but you can see up here we have a horizon that looks like it's in motion. So it's not a very good example. We'll have some better examples right now when we switch to the other 2 cameras. So I do Control Z. I'm going to leave the main camera as is. Let's go to rear view camera. I'm going to enable rear view camera. All right, so you see that that's what it is. Let's add that component here. So if let's try adding the add component button here and say Skybox. All right, so instead of going component, rendering and Skybox, we could actually just type in Skybox into the add component button. And I'll go to my project again. Let's see what our options are here. Yeah, you know what? Let's do this one. Night moon burst. You can see. Let's actually switch to game view for a larger view. I don't like that view. So you can always try other skyboxes. I'm gonna try cold night. And play around with it. Space, another planet. Let's try night moon instead. All right, so you can play with all of these. So you can see that looks more like a night sky. Let's try the other cameras. So I'm going to enable the world camera and switch back. Space, another planet. I want to do this one here. So we'll add another skybox. And so if I go to game view, this one looks much better. You actually looks like you have a planet just above you. And then in the view, world view, you can see that that's what it looks like. And finally, world camera 2. Let's add a skybox component to that. And let's do a different one. Let's do this one, deep dusk. There. And so you can see what it looks like in the camera view. If I switch to game view, that's what it looks like. So this is what our different, so now each of our cameras has like a different horizon to it. Now, if you're using the same game world, you want consistency. So you'd probably use the same skybox between all of the cameras for consistency. I'm just illustrating different skyboxes with the different cameras just so you can see everything in front of you. So having said that, the question now arises, well, is there a way for me to have my user switch cameras? Because right now I'm just manually switching cameras by checking and unchecking the different cameras here. All right, and when I run it, it only shows me the current camera in focus. All right, and so which is basically this game view. All right, so right now it has world camera 2, rear view camera as the main camera to be in focus. And if I start hiding these different cameras, it will it'll switch to the different the next available camera. So what I want to do is I want to set it up so that the user actually changes the camera for us. So we're going to do that in code. Now this is our first dive into coding. You've seen up until now it's basically just been drag and drop, change this setting, change that setting, but there's a whole coding aspect behind Unity to really fine tune and really customize your game. They call it scripting in the Unity world. There's two languages that you can use. There's JavaScript and there's C#. We're going to focus on C#. C# is a very powerful language, very easy to work with. So that's the language you're going to work with. Now we'll start off first of all by going to our project folder. We're going to add a folder here called scripts. And inside of scripts, we're going to add a new script. So C# script. I'm going to call it camera controller script. Now, when you want to be able to work with this camera controller script, you have to just double click on the file. Now, by default, when you've installed Unity, Visual Studio should have been installed as well. Either Visual Studio 2019 or 2017, but basically a Visual Studio version should be installed. And what will happen is when you double click on the script file, it automatically launches Visual Studio for you. So it's just loading up here. I'm just going to drag it over. And you'll notice that if you expand the assets folder here, you see all of our folders, but you'll usually just see the script files. So if there's any script files, you'll see them here. So there's camera controller script, and let's just double click on that to open it. All right. And so this is what an empty script looks like. It always extends mono behavior. So if you know your programming, you know that the subclass or the parent class, superclass, is mono behavior for any C# script in Unity. You have two methods by default. You have start and you have update. So start executes the moment that this script is launched. All right, and we'll talk about launching scripts in a moment. Update is executed every frame. So if your game is 30 frames per second, this is going to execute 30 times in a second. And so it'll repeatedly execute. Now what we're going to do is we want to control the camera that's in focus. So what we need to do is we need to find a way to link the real cameras that we have inside our editor to this code. So what we do is we're going to create a public variable. So any public variable in scripts here are basically variables that can be connected to physical items in the editor. And you'll see that in a second. So I'll just say public. They're cameras. I already know what they are. So camera. I'm going to use an array because I have an array of cameras. Call it cams. All right. And I'm going to have a counter to keep track of which camera is in play right now. So I'll just say int camNum equals 0. All right. Now, I'm not going to worry about start. I'm going to use update this time around, but I'm going to create a generic method here to do all the controlling. So I'll just say void set cams. Okay. Now, by default, you can tell that if it's not public, it's private. If we do set a method to public, then it becomes an event handler that you can connect up to a physical item in the editor. But we're keeping things private so that we don't connect up methods or expose methods to the editor because we don't need to right now. So in this method set cams, we're going to increment the counters. We'll say camNum plus plus. We'll say if camNum is greater than or equal to cams.length, then set camNum to 0. Okay, we're just going to loop it through our array here. What we're going to do is we're going to first run through all of the cameras that are attached and disable them. So basically unchecking the checkbox. So we'll just say for each camera C in cams, we'll say c.enabled equals false. Now this c.enabled, so the enabled variable for any object is the same as checking or unchecking that checkbox that we did to hide and unhide the object. Okay, so it's the enabled variable. And now we're going to say is cams of camNum dot enabled equals true. Okay, so just the one camera will be enabled and in focus. Now, all we have to do is just call this method. We'll call it an update. All right. So, but the thing is, we need the user to be able to tell us to trigger set cams and to switch to the next camera. So we're going to get some user input here. So we're going to use an if statement and say if input dot get key down for key code dot, let's just use the letter C. All right. And if that's the case, then we do a set cams. Okay. And that's the entire script that we're going to be working with. So this is the script that we're going to use to control our cameras. The question now arises, how do we apply this script in our editor? So first off, just do a Control S to save. All right. Now we're going to switch back to our Unity editor. And basically, what we need to do is add this to our script. So now it's going to refresh. It's going to, every time you save your script and update your script, it does a refresh. And you can see now the entire script is here. We need to, in order for this script to execute, it needs to be attached to a game object in the scene. Okay, and that scene needs to be enabled in order to do so. So what we're going to do is, there's two options. We're going to attach it to an existing game object. Right, any one of these will be perfectly fine. Or for organizational purposes, it's probably better to add it to an empty game object. So I'm going to add an empty. And I'm going to call this camera controller. And then what you do is inside camera controller, the position doesn't matter, is you hit add component, and let's just add our camera controller script, right? So camera controller script that we created. All right. Now you'll see that my variable cams, so if I bring up Visual Studio briefly, I have public camera, my variable is called cams, right? And if and so you can see cams here, it always capitalizes the first letter no matter what. So don't worry about your spelling of your variable. It's always going to capitalize letters. And if you have, and it's going to add spacing to your variables names as well. When you use camel notation and capitalize every word in a variable, it's going to capitalize and actually put spaces between words. So I'll expand it. My size is 0. I'm going to change size to 4 because I have 4 cameras. And now all I'm going to do is just drag all of my cameras. So element 0 will be the main camera. And element 1 will be the rear view camera. Element 2 will be the world camera. And element 3 will be world camera 2. And that's it. Now you just do a Control S to save your scene. And let's run this thing. And make sure that the game is in focus. All right. Now, if you're going to do any user input, you have to make sure that you click on the game window here to make sure the game window's in focus. So I click on, say, inspector, and I hit the letter, because our game was revolving around C, nothing's happening. I have to click on the game tab and make sure that's in focus and hit the letter C. Hit it a couple of times. And there you go. We switch cameras. There you go. We're switching cameras again. Now we're at this view of camera. So now you are switching cameras. All right. And there you have it. So in this exercise, we learned how to play with lighting, how to add objects and create our own structures out of them. We learned about going to the asset store and downloading items such as Unity Chan and also the free Skyboxes that are out there. And finally, we learned about cameras and adding Skyboxes to cameras, and then adding user input so that we can switch between the different cameras. All right, so Hope you had a good educational experience. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends. And until the next video, take care and bye for now.